All right, we're talking about living the spiritual life, the supernatural life. I think we're on part 22 of the series on living a supernatural life, part 42, I think, of What About Your Funeral? It doesn't matter. Somebody say 42 parts in a series. Wait till I get going. But we're talking about element 31. There are only 32 elements. Catch this. Let me deposit this to you today. Good morning, Glenn. And I sign a smile and a good morning to you today, and to Marilyn as well. Spiritual people, and this sounds so simple, but if you want to be a spiritual person, this is essential. Spiritual people are ever mindful of the power of their words. Life-conscious words is what we're talking about. A consciousness of life. Not neglecting the power of your own words, the power of your own ability to manifest potentially, if you think of Jesus and the scriptures. Yes, throwback to the Daily Dozen, indeed. Yes, 65. The Daily Dozen with a prayer series with 65 parts in it. That's what April's referring to. So we're in rookie numbers at this point. Possibly, if you consider Jesus now, the manifesting power outwardly of our words. You say, I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that speaking to things changes things. Well, at minimum, the inward manifesting power, the power of your own narrative, then maybe the seed power of your words, the power of your narrative into the hearers and the hearts of others. There is power here, and spiritual people, with their words, they don't neglect that power. They don't live ignorant of that power. They don't minimize. They don't fail to reverence that power. They are ever mindful of the power of their words. And here in your notes, they are quick to correct. That's not what I wanted to say there. Quick to reset. Let me try that again. Quick to repent. That's not the way I think about it, or that's no longer the way I think about it. Good morning, Denise. It's been a long time. Love you so much. And they're quick to redirect their words. Correct, reset, repent, redirect. And we started there, and we got into the blessing of gossip, and we'll maybe continue there. So now let's get into the new today. Let's rock the new. We live this way as a way of discipline. We're mindful of the power of our words as a way of discipline. And living mindful of the power of your words requires conditioning of will, requires summoning of will, requires the will to will. I'm writing a book currently, be out February 1st, and I can't wait to share it with you. But one of the things that I realize about Christ is that Christ was always, in Christ's dealings with people, always aware of the chaos that went into making them who they were, but never let them neglect the power to be who they truly could be. You think about this: the woman caught in adultery, and they're gonna kill her as an honor killing, and Jesus says, "No, I don't condemn you." And that's what I acknowledge: the chaos that came down the pipeline that brought this thing here, and then but go and sin no more. What? I acknowledge your agency. I affirm. Maybe you've never heard it said to you that you don't have to let this chaos dominate your life. And so acknowledging, I see the chaos that shaped this action. I'm not unsympathetic to it. Jesus was not even empathetic to the chaos of a human experience. He was sympathetic. Why? He felt it. The writer of Hebrews in the Christian scripture says that when God took on human form, he felt all of the complexity of what it means to be human. So when I talk about summoning your will, the conditioning of your will, the will to will, and the power of your words, part of that is saying, I choose to bring my large self to the front. I choose to not play the victim. So in these brackish waters, right? So I want you to think about this. You've got on this end all the chaos that's come down, where somebody says, well, was it Chesterton? I'm not sure. So may have been Nietzsche. I don't know. This could have been Dick Van Patten. But the statement is, you can you can choose what you will. You just can't will what you will. And what that's saying is that in the human condition, a lot of dominoes have fallen into place to frame your thinker, feeler, and chooser on how you're responding in this situation. But we ought not let those waters of what's happened before me, outside me, and inside me determine the sum total of my life. Why? Because there's, on the other hand, the agency and the accountability that that I am not subject to my small self, that is not the narrative of my life. And so you think about it, acknowledging the chaos, I don't condemn you. Affirming the agency, go and sin no more. And these brackish waters, what I mean by brackish waters, it's salt water and fresh water mixed together. It's where I used to live in Jacksonville. You could be in downtown Jacksonville on a river, a freshwater river, and see dolphins and alligators just hanging out together. Why? Because in that brackish water right there, you got a little bit of salt, a little bit of fresh, a little bit of, and so in the brackish waters is you and I, that like Paul, whoever writing and claiming to be Paul, maybe it was Paul, I don't know, the things that I don't do, the things that I do, I don't want to do, and the things I hate doing are the things I do. What's that? Acknowledging the chaos. He says, but I see something else operating in me. And what else is operating in me is that agency, that I will serve God. I will walk in the higher way. And so bring those. So when I talk about summoning your will, I just can't change the way I speak. I'm whatever sign I am. I'm a Pisces or a Virgo or a Leo or whatever that is. And you just got to accept me for who I am. I just say stuff and you just have to accept it. Well, I'll give you that, but I won't let you concede and be subjected to your small self and let that be the determiner of your whole life. Like Jesus, I acknowledge and affirm and sympathize with your chaos, but I also remind you of the large self on the inside. So let's move here a little bit forward. The will to draw in your notes. When I talk about conditioning will, what I mean the will to draw from the large self instead of the small self. That in this situation, I thought about, you don't have to have this in your notes, that if I had a straw, I drink your milkshake, right? If you had a straw and you say, well, I'm gonna put the straw over here in my Sprite, and I'm gonna draw from that, or I'm gonna put the straw over here in my cherry Coke. You can decide which one's the small self and the large self. But when I talk about summoning your will, I'm talking about, you know what? In this interaction, I'm gonna pull from my large self, not my small self. I just spoke what I spoke out of my small self. I can't stand it, and I don't know if I can do this. And you know what? You're the worst decision I ever made. Is that how you feel? Well, there's a component of me that feels that way. How do you also feel? I think I'm afraid, and I think that what's going on in me is so scary that I'm lashing out at you and I'm making you. So what are we doing now? We're switching our straw over to another reservoir and drawing out of that large self. In your notes now, when I talk about drawing from your large self, good morning, Larry. Good morning, Mr. Ronstadt. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Chris. When I talk about drawing from your large self, I'm talking about drawing from your image seeding. What I mean image seeding? Well, according to the Hebrew idea, human beings carry the image of God, imago Dei, that I am an image-bearing creation, that image and likeness, inward and outward, icon, right? Not only the nature of God, what the writer of Romans would call that the divine mind, that which can be known of God, planted inside me. So you can put the straw of your words and say, in this situation, I'm going to draw my words out of the reservoir of my large self, or my image-seeded self, the part of me that's been deposited with God. Or I'm saying, I want you to draw to your large self, that's your image seeding, as opposed to your chaos conditioning. Now, this is a big thing, your image seeding versus your chaos conditioning. It's an old story about the guys. They were out in the desert, man, on a horse with no name, and everybody was thirsty, and they finally came upon a little reservoir, and This is a horrible joke. This is a 6-year-old joke. But, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And they're like, man, we got miles to go. The horse ain't drinking. So the two dummies, they come up with this idea, Mutt and Jeff, right? And they're going to hold the horse's face down in the water, and the other's going to get on the back end and try to suck the water in like a straw. And he's like, keep going, keep going, keep going. He says, I am, but I'm just getting mud from the bottom. Anyway, so that's my 6-year-old joke there. Some of you chuckled and some of you just scoffed, guffawed. Some of you I clutched your pearls. From image seeding, draw from your image seeding as opposed to your chaos conditioning. Some of you are just getting, when you're going into your chaos conditioned self, you're drawing mud from the bottom. Good morning, Joy. Now, let's talk about chaos in your notes. Chaos macro. What is the macro, the big chaos? The macro chaos is the human condition. All the dominoes of history that have fallen to this present point. All the wars, all the isms, all the hatred, and all the division. In your notes now. The chaos macro is the human condition. The dominoes of history. That have led to the chaos micro. What's the chaos micro? In your notes. The chaos micro are your settings. So everything that happened out here, for your grandpa's, all leading back, depending on which textbook you're going with, either came out of a swamp or came out of a garden. You go to mitochondrial Eve, or you say, well, we just bubbled up from the slop. Wherever we came from, we know the motherland, right? We know where we came from. Just a matter of what text you got. I heard a guy say one time, he says, a little boy came to his dad and said, Dad, where do we come from? He says, what do you mean? He says, how did we get here? How did human beings get here? He says, well, we were made in the image of God and seated with power. And the divine image lives inside us, and throughout generations and generations, kings and priests have come out of the loins, and they've descended all the way down through time, through battles and through oppression and setbacks, and they have arrived from my father to you to now, and you are now that next great lineage in those kings and priests that have been rulers of the earth in time immemorial. And the little boy says, well, that's confusing. He said, because I asked Mom the question, and she said, well, we came out of the swamp, and then we turned into simple organisms, and then we became newts, and then we eventually crawled out of that and became tadpoles, and then we grew up and we started hanging from trees, and then we came from apes, and so which one's right? And the dad said, well, that's easy. He says, I was telling you about my side of the family, and she was telling you about her. So anyway, so chaos macro, the human condition that came down. Chaos micro, your settings. You were conceived with settings. Those settings make up your micro chaos, right? You got some strengths and weaknesses. You got some some debits and some credits and some debits, right? And now your settings and your shaping, those two things, your settings and shaping, how that fed into who you are, how the macro chaos fed into who you are. When you live, you have a choice to draw out of your image-seeded self, which that image-seeded you, the part of you made like God, was protected from all that chaos. No matter the macro chaos, who you really are as an image-bearing creation of God is protected from that macro chaos. No matter your micro chaos, your settings as an individual at conception, right? When that sperm and egg came together, that became your settings. That was your height. That was your ability to process fat and sugar. That was your ability. I mean, that are you a piano or a corporate auditor? It was right there. Determined your micro settings, and then your shaping. So your settings at conception, but now here comes your shaping. Your shaping is in utero to the present day. How much chaos was going on when you were coming up inside the womb? How much chaos were you into? I have in my notes here your settings and your shaping, or I have your soul scribing. I like that. The scribe, your soul scribing, your soul writing now starts to inform your micro chaos. So you've got your image seeding, which can't be touched. That's your large self made in the likeness and image of God. You've got your chaos, the big chaos, capital C chaos throughout the world. In history history and all time, what we would call original sin or original wounding, and then we have our little micro chaos. Who I am in this great big chaotic world, the unique sperm and egg that came together that flooded me. They talk about 450 shot glasses. All mixed, just mixed together. I mean, that's why your brother, it's kind of like you, but just it was a bartender lady and a bartender man pouring all their genetic things and they're pouring in, and it's so much complex and so much. I mean, the miracle of the individual you, but it's not just the individual you now. It's the shaping, it's the sanding, it's the soul writing, the soul scribing that makes you now. And when you release your words, are you releasing and drawing from that? Micro chaos, macro chaos settings and shapings, or are you putting the straw down into the reservoir of your image-seated self? And this is now the summoning of will. In this situation, my micro chaos, my macro chaos is screaming certain things within me, but that's not the only voice going inside me. The other voice going inside me is that image-bearing, image-seated, God-deposited voice, and that's where we want to live from. That's where we want to speak from. Are you catching what I'm saying? So let's dig a little bit farther now. So here's some helpful questions. When you're crashing out, anyway, when you're crashing out, who are you channeling? Who are you imitating with certain behaviors? You may have never thought about that until you age and you realize you start saying things or doing things, moving your head a certain way, crossing your legs a certain way, laughing at a certain joke, and somebody that knows you says, "Oh my God, you realize that was your dad right there. Oh my God, you realize that was your mom right there. What you just did is just like Grandpa." Sometimes when we're crashing out, we are mimicking and aping and imitating and channeling certain behaviors. So when you let both barrels go and start to tear into your kids, when you let both barrels go and start to tear into your spouse, when you let both barrels go and just start to round, who are you channeling? What soul scribing, shaping, or what settings, your genetic, who are you channeling here? That's a major question. Who are you channeling? And then who are you projecting? That's another question. Who are you projecting? You're coming at this person. You're coming at your spouse. Are you coming at your spouse projecting on them that they're your dad? Are you coming at this child projecting on them that they're your child's dad or your child's mom? Who am I channeling when I'm crashing out here? Who has shown me this is the appropriate way to handle it? Who am I embodying at that moment? And it's not just when you're crashing out, but when you deal with a situation. Whose cloak do you take on? Whose genetic cloak do you take on? Whose soul scribing, shaping cloak do you take on? Who are you projecting on? Well, I'm afraid you're going to be like so-and-so. I'm afraid doing this. I see in your father, I see in your mother this, and I see you that, and I'm coming down on you for that. So we're channeling something from somewhere, our settings and our shaping. We're projecting something from somewhere, probably not our settings, or sometimes it can be, I see the ugliness in me, and I'm lashing out at what I don't like about me because I see it in you. So we're channeling and imitating, we're projecting. And here's the big question. Whoever you're channeling and imitating here in your notes, were they acting from their divine seeding or from their dark chaos? I mean, this is how you break this down. When I say I want you to be a spiritual person, when I say I want to be a spiritual person, I want to know when crisis comes, what cloak do I reach in to put on? Who shows up? Is it Superman or Superbad? I mean, who's showing up in this thing? And well, when you start flipping over tables and slamming doors, or you get quiet, who has shown you that behavior? Well, nobody showed me that behavior. Then who are you projecting? Who has taught you that that's the way to respond? Well, that's the way I used to respond to my mother. So now we're working out the channeling. Now we're working out the imitating and the projecting. And the question is, whoever that is, were they operating in their settings and shaping, or were they drawing from the reservoir of their large selves? And so what you do is you say, when I say summon the will to will, conditioning the will, remembering my agency, you say, oh my gosh, I just jumped into a pattern that I've seen demonstrated before me, but my dad was doing that out of his small self. My big sister that raised me was doing that out of her small self. My aunt that I live with was doing, oh my God, I just started yelling at my husband the way grandma started yelling at her husband, and they were not in their large selves at the time. They were in their small selves. Who are you channeling? Who are you projecting? Whoever those who's are, were they acting from their divine seeding? Were they acting from their dark chaos? And here's my final question. What soul scribing will come from your present words and actions? Man, now there you go, right? I'm carrying on, I'm perpetuating something that ties to my settings and shaping. I'm now carrying that out. How is that affecting somebody else's settings and shaping? Because really, we don't have time to get into it, but your shaping becomes your new settings, and that's what's so crazy, is that it's layer upon layer. You're either building a track of large self shaping that kind of adds a coating of shellac of the large self onto the settings, or you're putting little nicks and dings into the self concept, and you're actually layering another level of chaotic shaping. But the shaping of chaos really becomes part of the settings. We're getting too far. So who am I channeling when I carry this out? Well, my brother showed me this is what a man was. My auntie said this is how you deal with a man. My dad, my mom, my neighbor, my pastor. This is how. And listen, you can imitate. It's so interesting because sometimes people say, I don't know how to act. Think of a hero or shero that you have. Think of somebody who you've seen put on a thing. Think of somebody you saw talk to their child. And you say, boy, they just got down and said, are you okay, honey? Sometimes you imitate that as an act of will. I'm going to do WWPD. What would Phil do in this situation? What would Aunt Helen do? You know, Aunt Helen was not like my mom. Aunt Helen, I don't know how they could come out of the same family and be so different. My mom was yelling, my dad was yelling, my this or that. But my Aunt Helen or my Aunt Jackie, they were in the same family, but they're just so nice. Well, remember the settings, right? Which egg and which sperm connected? That's the settings. You can take this egg and sperm with these settings. Take this egg and sperm in these settings. Put them in the same shaping environment, they come totally different out. Why? Because the similar shaping. That's why parents have to know that children are chess, not checkers. All pieces don't move the same way. And you can't treat every piece like the same way. And so sometimes when you say, I'm just repeating mom, or I'm just repeating grandma, or I'm just acting like my dad, sometimes you have to say, as an act of summoning my will, who else can I channel in this situation? Well, I remember when my cousin wrecked the car, and my Aunt Jackie or my Aunt Francine, she sat down, and when I wrecked the car and said, Dad, I wrecked the car, holy hell, what the, you can't, I'm telling you, can't, you're grounded for life. But I remember when my cousin Ralphie, he wrecked the car, and he came in and said, Dad, I wrecked the car, and my Uncle Jed stopped him and said, are you okay? Was anybody hurt? As long as you're okay. Hey, don't worry about it. Those things happen. Now you have a choice to channel. If you don't have somebody in your settings, listen, if Uncle Jed is there, some of his settings are in you. They came down from, there's some chaos is there. And I'm not saying Uncle Jed is a saint, but I'm saying you have to have the strength of will to say, if all I keep doing is channeling and imitating people who are drawing from their small self, I'm going to be soul scribing on the souls of other small self stuff. So I'm just going to reach into my reservoir, think of what else I know, who else can I channel in this, and in a matter of crisis or a time of intervention or a time of lowness, I can put on another cloak and start to imitate something else. And guess what? Each time I do that coat of shellac that I'm applying, it's actually recalibrating the settings. I think back to my high school. We had had a big in the middle of our campus was this boulder, and it was probably 15 feet wide and 7 or 8 feet high, and 8 feet deep. It was a boulder, and I don't know how it got there. It's just part of the lore, but they called it Senior Rock, and the classes would come through, and seniors 88 or homecoming. If we never won, we were always everybody else's homecoming guest because they would just beat the snot out of us. But if the football team won, they would write on the thing, the Saints in 37 to 3 or whatever the thing was, and seniors would be out there, and you could if you were an underclassman, you could go around it, but if you ever got near it, seniors would be like, man, get off the rock, Well, there was Junior Rock as well, and I don't know where Junior Rock came from. I don't think Junior Rock, the lore was that it broke off of Senior Rock, but Junior Rock was much smaller. It was movable. I mean, one person could carry it. The Magnus Van Magnuson, right? One person could carry it. Two people could move it around pretty quickly. And Junior Rock would also get spray painted and blah blah blah. So when we became seniors, our idea was, what we're going to do when we go across the stage at graduation, we're going to blow Junior Rock into a million pieces. And when we graduate as seniors, we're going to have a pebble, and each person that shakes the headmaster's hand is going to have a broken pebble of Junior Rock and there was a thing, the seniors would steal Junior Rock, juniors would steal it back. It's a lot of lore. Well, one thing we didn't realize, how we're going to break up Junior Rock, and so we had this brilliant idea, 17-year-olds do, that we were going to throw it out of a moving car on a hill, and then when it would tumble down, it would start to break it off, and we just thought if we just breaking it, because we tried to hit it with a hammer, that didn't work. Anyway, so we were coming down a hill, and we pushed it out of the back of my buddy's truck. But do you know, like 35 years of Junior Rock being spray painted, it had about a 2-inch rubbery, and this thing started bouncing like a Super Ball coming down the road. Boom. It wasn't breaking. It was bouncing. It was built. Now it's chasing the car. Now we're going faster and faster trying to escape this tumbling boulder down the road, and Junior Rock wasn't dinged at all. What happened? All the coatings became part of the rock. So what coatings got to be part of your settings? How can you imitate new settings? And how can your new settings become the new soul scribing on someone else's shaping, so that that soul scribing becomes another coat? Maybe there's a lot of stuff under there, but maybe how they start to greet the world is with the new stuff that you're putting on top of it. This is what it means to walk as a spiritual person. And you think about Jesus. Everywhere he went, the lady came up, he says, go get your husband. He says, I don't have a husband. He says, I know. You've had 5 husbands. Layer and layer and layer and layer. He was acknowledging her shaping, but he would not let the shaping be the sum total of her experience. Why? Because who she was at the core was that image seed itself. And so that's what I mean by operating and speaking from your large self. Are you even out there? I feel like hello, Larry. I feel like I lost everybody. Chris, good morning. Good morning. Yeah. Okay. So I just went on a tangent there. It doesn't matter. Let's take it a little more. So spiritual muscle memory. We talked about that last week. So let's move on. Now, part of this is learning and practicing and fostering mastery. It's in your notes here when it comes to edifying people with our words, and self too. You're not just edifying other people with your words. Self-talk is a gift. It's backed by science. Even in driving school, they tell you, talk yourself through what's happening. Tell yourself that you're going to be okay here. Good morning. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody. Okay, just making sure you're there. Okay, Samurai Dan, love you guys. Love you. Love to the whole crew. Self-talk too is backed by science. Now they tell you that your self-narrative is huge, but I remember teaching the kids to drive, and the experts said, now when you're doing, you say, I'm covering the brake as I go through the intersection. I'm looking both ways to make sure I have a green light. That's my right of way, but I have to drive assuming that the other people are not going to see or not going to acknowledge my right of way. In that self-narrative, okay, I'm putting on my signal, I'm slowing down, I'm merging. Self-talk is a huge thing, and we have to learn, practice, and foster mastery when it comes to building others up and to building ourselves up. And when it comes to building others up, in your notes, it's such low-hanging fruit. It's so easy to make a difference in this world by bringing something kind. One of the things I like, and this is fascinating, and this will be on the kids' podcast, or maybe it won't now that I'm talking about it, but one of the things I marvel about my kids' generation, and I don't know, are you guys millennial? What are you? No, you're Gen Z. Is I see, we always talk about the toxicity online. But I see whenever my kids post or wherever their friends post, it's like this little swarm of positivity comes out to people. And, did I say something wrong? Okay. My kids are laughing at me now. It doesn't matter. This is what they do in church. Is it him? What'd you do? Mikey, behave. Anyway, sorry. They're 18 and 21. Wow. Is that the apple cinnamon coffee? Holy cow. Woo. Man, I'm awake now. That was my first sip. Anyway, this is a crazy Sunday. Pop, you should have been here calming us down. But one of the things I notice is this sea of positivity. My son will do something, and all these people just come out of, and it's not just their friends. I'll say to Olivia, who's this? Oh, that's somebody I met. That's somebody that knows somebody. But I think this generation, and I don't know what's going on with alpha or beta. I don't even know if we are there. Kids having kids. But I think they've been so conditioned with the toxicity online that they see the need to be proactive about releasing positivity. That may not be the sum total of truth. I know people can still be toxic, but I do see, I'm happy to see that there are people that just, on something minor, this is a picture of my coffee. Oh, you look so good, Queen. Or, go off. And watching my son is one of my favorite things. My son, watching him, hearing any of the online lingo, anything that they do, it just makes me laugh so much because it's so far from me. And I never thought I would be old like that. But Connie and I laugh at them all the time because I get this whole language that I don't understand, and it's fun for us. But my son will do something and somebody will comment and say, "Wow, this is really nice," and he'll be like, "Tell the whole world it's the best they've ever seen." And I'm like, "Where does this come from?" But that's just where it comes from. It doesn't take much to bring positivity into this world. It doesn't take much to be edifying. And positivity stands out in people's heads and hearts, and it stands out in their emotional recall. One of the things I'm trying to do in my purpose of New Religion is to consider how Christ moved through the world. Christ moved through the world with his own crises, often under threat of death, often under threat of real problems, and always put the large self. Now, he was touched with every bit of the complexity of being human, had every reason to turn inward, and you see it very often in the Christian scriptures. His cousin is killed in an ugly, horrible political assassination. The religious powers and the political powers coming together to do what they do, to try to stamp out horizontal religion. This is a whole different thing. You got to get my book. And that's a shameless plug, but it's coming. But I talk about that. And Jesus is grieving, and so he just doesn't want to be on today. He doesn't want to be the miracle worker rabbi. So he sends his disciples like, "Look, I just need some time. I'm gonna go get me a bare Airbnb up in the mountains, and I'm gonna chill." But people find out where he's at, and they're outside, and he's like looking on the Ring camera, and they're outside, and it's like, "Hey, you can." And so it says he just heals them all there. But he realized he was so far up in the woods that everything's closed. So now he's got to feed them. And he's like, I have compassion on them. So he feeds them. Then he sends them away. And the people go out, and the disciples, he's looking out over the bay, and he sees his disciples, and then a storm hits, and he knows his disciples are out there. So he comes down, and he helps them and gets them to the other side. He comes right out of the boat. And now people are like, hey, man, my cousin's sick, if you don't mind. And he was just never allowed to go inside. And I don't mean that as not self-care. Well, I just got to be on for everybody. I'm not talking about that. And we're not him, right? I mean, we can do that to a degree, but I'm talking about just going through. I have lots of reasons to meditate on my own woes. Bob Marley, everybody knows their burden is the heaviest, right? So I'm just trying to not be turned inward into my own malaise, to my own discomfort, right? The Tao, right? The only problem with the world is that it's not to my liking. Well, that's pretty much it. If the world was to my liking, I would be nice to everybody. But the world is not to my liking. But I'm trying to now break out of my own negativity and also purpose strategically with love and genuine care, knowing that true religion is not vertical. True religion is entirely down to how you embody God towards other people, to break through the negativity into people's emotional recall. And it doesn't take much. The first thing, how are you doing today? The second thing, how's things going? The third thing, people are used to 2-second interactions, get on and let me get back to my thing. But when you walk into a person and you see them and you care about them, and you say, this is someone's husband, someone's son, someone's father, someone's brother, that there's a kid at home that watches that person come in and, oh man, dad's home. That when that lady walks up to that table and you guys just crapped all over it and didn't leave her a tip, that she's got to go home and they'll say, Mom, how was work? It wasn't this. So it doesn't take much to break through those repeating cycles of toxicity and negativity and just say, how are you? Good. And when you say it with care, people instantly recognize that you're not small chatting them. So how are you doing today, Fernanda? You doing all right? Yeah, actually, I'm doing good. Has it been peaceful? It's been okay. Well, are people treating you right or treating you wrong? 50-50? Well, it's getting ready to get righter. We're so glad to be here. All of a sudden, people go, what's going on with this? It doesn't take much to use words to generate that positive emotional recall. And this is where the summoning of the will. So you don't have to have this in your notes, but we just moved into a new apartment condo place and about 6 weeks ago, and have had a wonderful experience. And it's the old John Maxwell principle, Guy goes in a hardware store. He's new in town, and he asked the hardware store man. He says, how are the people in this town? He says, what do you mean? He says, well, are they friendly? Are they closed off or whatever? And the hardware store manager says, well, how are the people in the town you came from? He says, oh man, well, everybody was nice. No, everybody, there was, nobody was a stranger, spoke to people on the streets. The hardware man says, I think you're going to find this town is a lot like the town you came from. So a guy comes in the next day, different guy. Well, how are the people in this town? He says, well, how are the hardware store says, well, how are the people in the last day? He said, well, everybody was just bitter and too busy to move and nobody had time for anybody. And hardware store says, man said, I think you're going to find this town is a lot like the town that you came from. And so Connie and I just go out and we try to meet people and just bring the world that we want to bring into the world. We want to bring the not yet world into the world and all the social media and weaponizing and blah, blah, blah. And I think about that sometimes, sometimes I feel bad. Sometimes I'll put on a flannel because it's cold and my beard will be a little bit grown out and I'll go out into the world in different parts of the world and depending on where I am. I think sometimes people look at me and they stereotype me. I think sometimes people look at me and think I'm from one political place or one thing over here, and I think they look right at me, and sometimes I feel like, oh, you must think I'm one of those, or you must think I'm one of them, or you must think I think like this, and I say, I don't think like that at all, and it's a really horrible thing to be just reduced to my appearance and a narrative to be built on that appearance, and you want to get upset and say, these people just looking at me like this and this, and then you think, well, man, how long have people been looked at for how many years? And reduced down to this is your appearance and must be who you are. And so I try to be acknowledging. So well, you just got to give me more context. Baby, we got 300 something years of context going on. There's a lot of context that's happening here. And so I just try to say, I understand the macro chaos, I understand the micro chaos, but I'm trying to exist as a little bit of the not yet in the right now. And so we moved into this neighborhood, and how are the people in this neighborhood? We think pretty much like the people in our last neighborhood because it's who we are. But there's one lady, and I mean, she couldn't be broken. She couldn't be, you play it small, you play it big, you play it big. She's not going to be broken. And just snippy and snooty and curt and blah, blah, blah. And I heard her, huffing at an employee and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I heard her, and she walked by the other day, and I was trying to work, and Connie and I were sitting there working together, and I said to her, she walked by, and she didn't even speak. She was talking to everybody else, and just walked by me, and I thought, you know what? When she comes back through here, I'm going to pull her aside, and I was going to do it nice, and I was going to say, here's what I had in my brain. I thought, I'm going to say, you know what? Everybody in this neighborhood, all the staff, all the workers, all the maintenance people, all the front desk people, they just make us feel so good. You're the only one here who has made us feel like garbage, and you've made us feel like garbage since day one. And I don't know what that means, but it may be something worth considering because we don't know you at all. And from the first moment we met you, you just made us feel bad. And I was waiting, and I heard her coming down the hall. But you know what? As soon as she came around the corner, I opened my mouth, and man, that thing turned. I said, you know what? I said, how's it going? She said, it's fine, sir. I said, well, are you about wrapped up or what do you got? She said, I still have 5 more hours. I said, oh, Lord, I pray it goes fast. Sometimes those 5 hours, I said, I'd rather you be right at the beginning and hopeful or right at the end and hopeful, that middle mark. She goes, yeah, that's true. I said, well, do you get a break at all? When's your normal, do you have a normal weekend? Or she said, oh, I've got to work twice this weekend because somebody called out and I have to cover it. I said, oh, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Boy, I remember those days. Good to be in charge. Yeah, bad because it all falls with you. She goes, that's so true. By the time it turned around, we were having this great conversation. She came down the stairs, asked about where we were from, blah, blah, blah. What happened? I was coming at her with my small self, getting ready to hit her small self, but I could drink out of that milkshake, or I could switch it over to my Very Berry milkshake with the nice little giant cookie that Steak and Shake doesn't make no more, but they should make it because they'd probably be doing better as a restaurant and as a chain. But what do? You switch that over. And you have to have the spiritual training. You have to be in practice of living out of your large self. Why? Because one day you'll say, you know what, I'm going to let my small self loose. And your small self let loose on someone else's small self, that's chaos compounded. And it's not what we want to bring into the world. So this is where that conditioning is. This is where that it's all right, Thomas, you're right on time. You're not late. You're tuning in right on time. We're happy you're here. Connie just said that. I'll tell you this, a couple of months ago, I was at the lowest point I've been at, maybe in 30 years. And I mean, and again, you don't need this in your notes. I was dealing with tears, depression, shame, fear. It was bad. It was bad. Just, I don't want to get into it, but I mean, anyway, I went to rent a U-Haul and, just because I had to find a place to go. And, just feeling like such a failure, just feeling like, God, I'm just doing what I think is in my heart to do. And I knew there would be a cost, but I just didn't know this would be the cost. And as a dad and a husband, it doesn't even matter. At my absolute lowest, I walked into this place and I went to rent this thing. And when I tell you this man was the rudest, he treated me like I was a dog that nobody wanted. And I was like, good morning. And he goes, mm-hmm. I said, I said, I have a thing for that. He says, do you have the app? I said, no, I don't have. Well, you got to get the app. I said, okay, well, how do I get it? Sir, I'm not a technical person. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Okay, well, do you have the Wi-Fi here? He says, I am not IT, sir. I don't know how to help you. Okay, well, let me figure it out, this and that. And so I was looking, I said, well, is this what I should be? He said, yeah, step back, please. Please give me my personal space. You don't need to be in my personal space. Let me tell you. What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? You gotta be nice to people. You don't know who you're dealing with. You come at people, you don't know where they are. You don't know how thin. And I remember sitting there, and they had a big giant trailer hitch, one of the ball and things. And I just was like, even at my lowest, I had this flash, and I saw this big ball silver thing, and I thought, I'll whack this dude in the head and send him on to glory. And you hear, final, what is it? What is that game? Mordecai, finish him, right? And I thought, no, the devil is a liar. And I commented, I said, oh, that's a good book you're reading over there. And he turned around. You read that? Oh, yeah, man, I read that book over there. Oh, yeah, there's that. I said, oh, man, that's a good one. There's another one there. And by the time that thing was over, he said, man, God bless you, sir. Have a great day. When you're at your absolute max, when you're being chased by a bear, that's not the time to start your cardio regimen. You want to do that cardio regimen all the time. Why? So that when the heat starts, you're built and ready to run. And it takes discipline. Spiritual people discipline themselves that even when they say something they don't want to, I didn't mean that. Boy, I just about to die. I didn't mean that. I meant it was really funny. Well, I'm not in bondage. I'm not in bondage to my words either. I don't believe I've got a power that's out of control. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about disciplining myself to keep life-conscious words when the sun is shining, so that when the storm is raging, I know what it's like to dip into my large self instead of dipping into that chaos. Why? Because What chaos would I have been imitating? What uniform would I be stepping into by releasing some sort of, you're not going to talk to me like that? What does that spiral out of control? Chaos to chaos is a terrible way to go through the world. It's the world that we see right now. Violence justified by violence. Well, they did this to us. Well, that's why I did it to them. Well, why are you doing it? Because of what you did to me. And we said, well, fine. You want to go crazy? I'll take it to 11. I mean, we can go all day long. I mean, an eye for an eye till everyone is blind, right? You know what I'm saying? Building people up is always important. We're not going nowhere. Let me take another sip of this lightning coffee. Yeah. What did you think? No? Connie's like, we said, we're going to try something new. See, you don't always need something new. Building people up is always important, even and especially in their absence. You know what you ought to purpose as a matter of discipline? I just don't want to leave anybody in a negative light. When the conversation's over, I don't want you thinking about so-and-so in a negative light. Now, that's hard to do. We talked last week about the blessing of, gossip. When we talk about not leaving somebody in a negative light, sometimes we're just talking about situations and circumstances, and the way Fred, handles the meetings, they're so boring, and I can't stand that. I don't know how this guy got to be supervisor. Yeah, he's smart, but he has no people skills. You're commenting, but that's expressing sentiment. But when we talked about before, we're talking about what you feel and what you also feel. See, the not leaving Fred in a negative light is remembering who Fred is at the core of his person. You can comment on the circumstance. You can vent and express frustration. And there are people who say, well, science says that, venting and expressing your frustration is bad for you. Well, yeah, so is holding it all in. So is never having a safe place with somebody who commiserates with you. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. And it's just okay to come in and say, man, this thing sucks. I don't want to get into negativity. You're not going to complain around me. That's denying the messiness of being human. You need people that can understand the messiness of being human, that can be sympathetic to your settings and your shaping, but also can remind you of who you are in your large self. And that's why your venting should always be in a safe place. Why? Because it's going to let you go left, it's going to let you go right, but it's not going to let you go off the edge, because they're always going to do what Jesus does, which is what? Speak to that inner knower inside you. This is what I feel. Okay, but what do you also feel? And I don't want to tell you what I also feel. I only want to talk about the bad now. Now we need to get back into strengthening, summoning that strength of will. Mind the ratio on how much you express the negative versus the positive in your notes. What you feel, what you also feel. Mind the ratio on this. You want to be spirit sensitive. I have that lowercase in my notes. And spirit sensitized. I have that uppercase in my notes. Spirit sensitive. What your own spirit says. Spirit sensitive. What the spirit says. You know when the mix isn't right. You know when you're laying in on Fred in the meeting. You won't believe what they did this week. They had this and that. We had to stand there. Then we played the game. It was the dumbest game in the world. And I just couldn't stand it. You know when you're just talking about a situation. But when it spills over and crosses into tearing Fred down and forgetting that he's a husband and a father and a brother and a son, and you start to move him less than a dog scenario. And Kenobi, every time he hears that, less than a dog, what does that mean? What is it? Less than what the heck you mean less than a dog? You mean less than a human? It's like he jumped on me the other day. He's like, oh God, Dad, you smell like a white person when their hair gets wet. So gossip is fun and okay. You just mind the mix. Let me see here. Let me move down now. We talked about husbands and spouses and children last week. We won't rehash it, but let's move on. So it's okay to talk about people in a right context, but even then we must be mindful of our tendency to reduce people to their worst trait, their worst incident, or their worst tendency. It's in your notes. It's coming at you fast. We got just a few minutes. We must be mindful about reducing people down to their worst trait, worst incident, worst tendency. Okay, Fred can't run a meeting. We get it. His chair fell apart. He crashed out. It's what he does. But we also don't want to forget that Fred is human. And when we go in, it's funny. We go in a second time, it's funny. And when we go in a third third time was funny, but at a certain point, we start to diminish Fred's humanity, and we reduce them to this incident. We reduce Fred to this trait. We reduce Fred to this tendency, and that is not the sum total of who Fred is. Why? In your notes, we ought not do this to them. Why? Because we won't do it to ourselves. We won't let ourselves be reduced down to our worst trait, incident, or tendency, and we won't let our loved ones. I mean, you talk about my kid, and I may agree that's a bad tendency of his. I may agree that's a bad tendency of hers, but you're not going to reduce them down to that trait, that incident, or that tendency. That's why in a courtroom, there's mothers on both sides of the courtroom. This one here did this to this one here, and mothers show up on both sides. Mother A feels bad for Mother B. Mother B feels bad for Mother A. Boy, if my child was hurt like that, I'd be furious. Well, if my child ever hurt somebody like that, I'd be heartbroken. I mean, that's why mothers sit there. Why? Because these are the facts of the case. These are the incidents. These are the traits. This is the tendency, but I will not let you reduce them down to not being human. This is what it means to be a person of the Spirit. Why? Because none of us believe, in your notes, that we're the sum of our not best selves. That's not who we believe we are. We're not the sum of our not best self. Put all your not bestness together. That's who you are. That's not who we think we are. We know we're more than our worst thing. I mean, you remember the line from the movie, right? If Christ teaches us anything, it's that every human being is worth more than their own worst act. I mean, my God, if you don't come at it with that, then you don't understand what it means to follow Christ. You're with Raul. Who is Raul? That's Jesus' third cousin on Mary's side. Not a good dude. Stay away. We should discipline ourselves to apply that same faith to others, that I am not who I am on my worst moments, worst tendencies, and worst traits, and worst incidences, and they are not who they are. I apply it in my heart. I apply it in my action. I apply it in my words. How I treat people. I mean, this is it. I need 10 weeks to get through it. The Spirit will sensitize you to this when you push past venting or sharing and you've crossed into dehumanizing. It's coming in your notes. When you've crossed into dehumanizing. Okay, so, your cousin is a cheap dude, and your cousin didn't even made everybody pay for the drinks at their own wedding, and blah, blah, blah. My God, he's $1 million thing, and he got a $6 million house, and he is actually making people pay for water is free, but if you want punch, it's $3. What's going on with this guy? Okay, you're venting. Everybody gets it. He's cheap. Who knows his settings? Who knows his shapings? Whatever. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's going to make a great story one day, but we don't want to get into dehumanizing Cousin Ralph. We don't want to make Cousin Ralph's small self out to be all of who Cousin Ralph is, or even a disproportionate part of who Cousin Ralph is. Boy, this is what happens a lot of times when relationships break down. You say, what happened here? And the estrangement is very difficult to explain. Sometimes families are estranged, friends are estranged. What happened with you and your bestie? I don't really know. And a lot of times we don't know. But I will tell you this, sometimes it's just lack of investment. Sometimes the devil's minister on this side, the devil's minister on that side. Sometimes things go left and implode and explode. That happens. It's part of being human. It happens to the best of us. It happens to you and I. But sometimes we allow the narrative to say who this person is and their incident, their tendency, their trait. That's the sum total of who they are, is who they are in their small self. And we have a cleverly edited highlight reel to prove it. And that's not really true at all. That's not really true at all. When the Spirit quickens you on this, you crossed over. And maybe it's not the Spirit directly inside you, but maybe it's someone lovingly and well-timingly who nudges you on it, says, no, come on now. Sometimes all it takes in a group session is say, Fred, this and that, Fred, and this and that, Fred, this and that. I mean, my God, that guy, can he do anything right? Sometimes somebody in the circle says, I don't know, Fred's an okay dude. I mean, he's kind of quirky, but whatever. And when that happens, don't start to defend. Don't deny, don't double down. Just say, no, you're right. You're right. And then you can add grace-infusing context to the conversation. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Fred's a good dude. I mean, he helped me out back with this and that. I just think I get frustrated sometimes. What is that? That's having the character and the courage of will to receive the correction. And to say, yep, that was the Holy Spirit saying, that's not who I want to be here. Let me see. Let me stop here. Let me stop. All right. The Spirit will sensitize you. I guess I don't want to double up. One more thing on gossip. I can't start it. Gossip is a blessing. But you just have to be aware of relationships in your life that are built entirely on the chatter. That if you took out the chatter, you say, I don't really know what I would have if not for the cross winds of reports. You got to be mindful of that. What does that mean about you? What does that mean about them? What does that mean about the health of our relationship? But I think we'll stop right there. Okay, so thank you for being part of our church service today. Church has two parts. You come and you learn and you grow. That's the part we just finished. And if you've come here and you've learned and you've grown, I ask you to consider, I ask you to complete the cycle and say, hey, this is a blessing to me. I want to be a blessing to you. Some of you, a few of you, every week you're like, I just want to do something for you and your family. We thank you. Others of you are like, oh, I'm on, but once a month I just do something for you and your family. Thank you. The vast majority say, woo, that was good stuff. I ain't doing nothing for you and your family. Think about what that must feel like. Well, Pastor, I would help you, but $2, man. I just feel it's more than that, and I'm embarrassed of that. Listen, $2 from a sincere heart. It's fuel for us. It's life for us. $2 got the U-Haul rental. You know what I'm saying? So the church part is, I, as your pastor, I'm going to feed you. I, as your pastor, Connie and I, as your pastor, are going to cover you. We're going to stir you. We're going to pour into the podcast. We're going to pour into the sermons. And if it blesses you, if you say, my life, my inner and outer life is stretching and enlarging as a result of what I'm receiving, if it's a blessing to you, I encourage you. Just thank you. Thank you for being a blessing to us. But beyond that now, church is going outside to see others, to embody love, to ease suffering. That there's a world of no war. We don't live in that world. That's not yet. There's a world of no human trafficking. There's a world of no unhoused people on the streets. There's a world where people aren't persecuted for their religion or their color or their sexuality. That's the not yet world. Guess what you and I are going to do? We're going to be that not yet world right here. A few of us have the not yet world living in us. Jesus called it a seed of the not yet world. Those people who have that seed, they become a seed of the not yet world, manifesting not yet world, the non-suffering, non-violence, non-ism, non-tears of the not yet world. They bring about a little bit of that not yet world right here. That's the other part of church. I just miss the fellowship. I just wish we could get together. I get it. But you know what? I fellowship with the people on the streets. I fellowship with the guy cutting the grass. I fellowship with the old lady needing help with her groceries. I fellowship with the person broken down on the side of the road. I fellowship with the people living on the streets and just sit there and talk to them and realize, man, God was out on the street corner the other day with a sign, and I just went and spent some time with God. Volunteer at a place. Put something together. Stuff something. Do something. Sit there across the table from 5 people, putting together things for homeless youth, putting together packages for LGBTQ youth that just haven't, people that have aged out of foster care. And we just put together some things. We sat down, and I just, you know what I did? I just went to Costco and bought a bunch of stuff and brought it down to the picnic table and just sat and ate with some people. I just got a $4,000 bonus check and blah, blah, blah. And Pastor Mike, I just said a little bit of this for you and Connie. I took the rest of it down, and I just went and I found all the guys who are trying to get day labor, and I said, look, I don't have anything for you to do, but I got $100 for each of you here because I know you're trying to provide for your family. I mean, is there no way to be the not yet in the right now? There is. Yeah, but I need, well, if you want to worship all the way over and all the way back. If you want to listen to your songs, if you want to sit there and play songs, go to a nursing home, play some songs. I tell you what, play some songs, but learn to play mahjong. And the person that doesn't have the cards, play this. Go donate 5 sets to some. I mean, there is a way to get down and to feel the presence of God. Oh, I just need to get in the choir. I just need to get in the worship and to feel God's presence. I'm going to tell you what, you go sit with the suffering. You go sit with the suffering. Go to a hotel near a children's hospital. Ask the person, I'm here because I see these people coming in and out, and I know there are people that are dealing with bills. Yeah, I got one person that hasn't paid, one person this and that, their credit card. I'd like to deal with some. I'd like to pay some of that off. I'd like to deal with that. Go to a classroom. Who doesn't have crayons and this and that? Well, we do have some. I don't want them to even know who it is. I just want to make sure that when they come in Monday, they have all of this stuff. You want to feel the presence of God. Jesus said, when every human dies, they're all going to be gathered around the throne. The Buddhists will be here, the Muslims will be here, the Christians will be here, the Protestants, Catholics, the atheists will all be gathered together. And Jesus said he's going to come out and say, okay, everybody who saw the suffering and helped them to my right, everybody who walked past and pretended they couldn't do anything to my left. And, well, we got a mixed crowd over here. We got Muslims and Jews and Christians, and we got Muslims and Jews and Christians. And we're like, wait, why are you breaking us up like this? It's okay. Everybody to my right, you're going to the not yet. Everybody to my left, boom, I'm never going to remember you again. You mean it wasn't about what faith I practice? It had nothing to do with what faith you practice. It's that you realize that the practicing of that faith is entirely about seeing God and responding accordingly. That's our church. B, the not yet. E, suffering. Embody love. It starts with seeing others. What settings and shaping went into where they are? You can acknowledge the chaos and affirm the agency. You and I can be the ongoing embodiment of Christ. That's what this church is about. Amen. All right, that's all I got. Bless you. Thank you. Now I want to speak something over you. Peace, health, protection, preservation, soundness, abundance, aboveness, goodness, manifest, loaded with benefits every day, favor, the angel of the Lord ministering and camping around about you, keeping you in all your ways, lest you dash your feet against a stone. The joy of the Lord has strength, light, health, soundness, wisdom, clarity. Arise. I release all the love I have inside, all the love I have from God inside, and I release it toward you, and may my love and Connie's love and my family's love unite with your love. May it provoke and surround you, and now you feel the love of God in you, flowing up and overwhelming you, giving you peace in the middle of an impossible circumstance. This is my faith. This is my prayer. And I release this blessing over you today and all this week. And I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you all. I love you all. Make it a great and glorious week. I'll see you here. I promise we're going to finish this up. I really do feel like it. Just hang in with me. And thank you for just letting me get it to you. I can't tell you what that means to me. Okay. Love you much. Make it great. You are blessed in Jesus' name.